In 1624, Dutch settlers arrive at the southern tip of Manhattan Island. They build a small trading post surrounded by wooden palisades. Fort Amsterdam sits at the water's edge, its Dutch flag snapping in the harbor breeze. The settlement has maybe 30 wooden houses with thatched roofs. Smoke rises from chimneys. Native Lenape people watch from the forests that still cover most of the island. The Dutch call this place New Amsterdam. They're here for one thing: beaver pelts. The fur trade with native tribes makes fortunes for merchants back in Holland. This tiny outpost controls access to the Hudson River and everything beyond it. By 1653, the settlement needs protection. Director General Peter Stuyvesant orders a wall built across the northern edge of town. Colonists construct a wooden barrier 12 feet high running from the Hudson to the East River. It's meant to keep out British colonists, native raids, and wild animals. The wall gives its name to a street, Wall Street. Behind this barrier, New Amsterdam grows to 800 residents. Brick buildings start replacing wooden ones. A windmill turns on the hill. The Dutch bring their architecture, their language, and their tolerance for different religions. It won't last. 4 British warships enter New York Harbor in September 1664. They aim their cannons at New Amsterdam. Peter Stuyvesant wants to fight, but the colonists refuse. They're merchants, not soldiers. The Dutch surrender without firing a shot. The British rename everything. New Amsterdam becomes New York, named for the Duke of York. The wall stays. The grid of streets stays. Most Dutch families stay too. The British just take over management. It's a changing of flags, not a destruction. But English becomes the language of business and law. The Dutch era ends quietly. By 1730, New York has become a proper colonial city. Ships from London, the Caribbean, and Africa crowd the docks. Enslaved people unload cargo while merchants inspect goods. New York's economy runs on slavery. A third of the population is enslaved. They build the docks, load the ships, work in households, and construct the buildings. Trinity Church rises above the harbor, its spire the tallest structure in the city. Wealthy. Merchants build Georgian-style homes along Broadway. Taverns overflow with sailors and traders speaking a dozen languages. New York has 7,000 residents and controls trade from New England to the Carolinas. On a cold January morning in 1776, colonists gather at the Bowling Green. They pull down the statue of King George III. They melt it down to make bullets for the Revolution. New York sits at the center of the coming war. The city has 25,000 people now. British loyalists and revolutionary patriots live side by side, suspicious of each other. Sons of Liberty meet in secret in taverns along the waterfront. British soldiers patrol the streets. Everyone knows war is coming. The question is, which side will control New York when it arrives? British warships bombard New York in September 1776. General George Washington's Continental Army can't hold the city. They retreat north through Manhattan while British troops land on the shores. The British occupy New York for the next 7 years. It becomes their military headquarters for the entire war. Loyalists flood into the city from across the colonies. Patriots flee. A massive fire destroys a quarter of the city in the chaos. Buildings burn for days. Nobody knows who started it. The British rebuild and fortify. New York sits out the revolution under enemy control while the war rages everywhere else. On November 25, 1783, the last British soldiers march out of New York. General Washington rides in at the head of the Continental Army. Crowds line the streets cheering. American flags hang from windows. The occupation is over. New York becomes the first capital of the United States. Federal Hall stands at Wall and Nassau Streets. In 1789, George Washington takes the oath as the first president on its balcony while thousands watch below. The city has 33,000 residents now. For 1 year, New York is the center of the new nation. Then the capital moves to Philadelphia, and New York has to find a new purpose. The waterfront transforms in 1807. Robert Fulton's steamship Clermont makes its first voyage up the Hudson River. Crowds gather at the docks in disbelief. A ship moving against wind and current without sails. Black smoke pours from the smokestack. Paddle wheels churn the water. The trip from New York to Albany takes 32 hours instead of 4 days by sail. Within a decade, dozens of steamships run regular routes. New York's harbor becomes the busiest port in America. Goods flow in and out faster than ever. The city's population reaches 100,000. Manhattan starts filling up. The Erie Canal opens in 1825, connecting New York Harbor to the Great Lakes. Suddenly, goods from the entire Midwest flow through Manhattan. Grain from Ohio, lumber from Michigan, furs from beyond. Canal boats arrive daily at the Hudson River docks. Workers unload cargo destined for Europe and the Caribbean. New York becomes the gateway between America's interior and the world. Other cities have ports. New York has the canal. That makes all the difference. The city's population explodes to 200,000. Banks open along Wall Street to finance this trade. New York leaves Boston and Philadelphia behind. Castle Garden at the Battery processes its first immigrants in 1855. Before Ellis Island, this was where newcomers entered America. Lines stretch out the door. Families carry everything they own in trunks and bundles. Irish fleeing famine. Germans escaping political upheaval. Chinese seeking opportunity. Inside, officials process 8 million immigrants over 35 years. Most stay in New York. The city's population hits 800,000 by 1860. Tenements rise in lower Manhattan. Cramped buildings housing dozens of families. 5 Points becomes the most crowded neighborhood in America. Different languages echo through the streets. New York transforms into a global city. The draft riots explode across New York in July 1863. For 4 days, mobs burn buildings and attack black residents. They're angry about the Civil War draft. Rich men can pay $300 to avoid service. Poor men must fight. The riots turn into the deadliest in American history. Buildings burn. People die in the streets. The colored orphan asylum goes up in flames. Federal troops finally restore order, but 120 people are dead. The riots expose New York's deep divisions over race, class, and the war. The city is growing fast, but not growing together. The Brooklyn Bridge opens in 1883, connecting Manhattan to Brooklyn. For weeks, people have wondered if this massive suspension bridge will actually hold. On opening day, 150,000 people walk across. They look down at the East River 130 feet below. Ships pass underneath. The bridge's granite towers rise like cathedrals. Steel cables sweep in perfect arcs. It's the longest suspension bridge in the world and an engineering marvel. The walk from Brooklyn to Manhattan takes 20 minutes instead of waiting for a ferry. The bridge makes Brooklyn part of Greater New York. It's a symbol of what American engineering can achieve. The Statue of Liberty arrives in New York Harbor in 1886. The massive copper statue comes in pieces from France. Workers spend months assembling it on Bedloe's Island. When it's complete, Lady Liberty stands 305 feet tall, torch raised to the sky. Ships entering the harbor see her first. For millions of immigrants, she becomes their first sight of America. The statue represents freedom and opportunity. Inside the pedestal, Emma Lazarus's poem welcomes the tired, the poor, the huddled masses. New York is now clearly America's gateway to the world. The Flatiron Building rises in 1902 at the intersection of Fifth Avenue and Broadway. 22 stories of steel frame and limestone facade. Its triangular shape follows the wedge of land where the streets meet. People stop on the sidewalks and stare up. It's one of New York's first skyscrapers, and it changes how people think about buildings. Cities can grow up, not just out. Steel frame construction makes it possible. Elevators make it practical. Within a decade, dozens of skyscrapers reshape Manhattan's skyline. The age of the tall building has arrived. Times Square blazes with electric lights in 1910. Massive illuminated signs advertise theaters, hotels, and products. The Great White Way, they call it. Broadway theaters show a dozen different productions every night. Crowds pack the sidewalks. Cars, streetcars, and horse carriages compete for space in the streets. This is the entertainment capital of America. Vaudeville, drama, musicals. Everything happens here. The bright lights symbolize a new kind of city, running on electricity and speed and spectacle. New York has 4.7 million people now. It's the largest city in the United States. Construction begins on Grand Central Terminal in 1913. The Beaux-Arts building replaces an older station. Inside, the main concourse soars 125 feet high. Constellations cover the vaulted ceiling in gold leaf. Light streams through massive arched windows. Four-sided clock sits atop the information booth. Commuters rush across the marble floor to catch trains to the growing suburbs. The terminal handles 200,000 passengers daily. It's not just a train station, it's a palace for the common traveler. Grand Central shows that public buildings can be magnificent. The Empire State Building rises through 1930 and 1931. Construction moves at incredible speed. 4.5 stories per week. Steelworkers walk the beams hundreds of feet above the street. The Art Deco skyscraper will stand 1,154 feet tall, the tallest building in the world.
The Empire State Building rises through
It opens
1930
during the
and
Depression when
1931.
office space
Construction
sits
moves at
empty,
incredible speed.
but
4.5
it becomes
stories per
an
week.
instant icon. King Kong will climb it. Millions will visit its observation deck. The building represents American ambition and engineering at its peak. From the top, all of New York spreads below. The city has conquered the sky. From a small Dutch trading post to the world's most famous skyline. New York grew through ambition, immigration, commerce, and innovation. Every era added new layers. The Dutch grid of streets, British colonial trade, American independence, the Erie Canal's commercial boom, waves of immigrants, engineering marvels like the Brooklyn Bridge, skyscrapers reaching for the clouds. This is how cities are built. Not all at once, but piece by piece, generation by generation. New York's story is still being written. The city keeps reinventing itself the way it always has.